And what that typically means, someone owns you. The truth is, if you're marketing your SaaS and it feels like marketing, you're doing it wrong. You just need to talk to people.
Can't be that simple, Tom.
But it is. So if you get the marketing right, you can make more money than your competition, even if the product is not as good.
And you actually see this all the time. So think of the best-selling SaaS in your market and think about the features, and it's probably actually technically worse than yours. So what we're going to tell you is, as a developer, why is it that you actually hate doing marketing? What the most common advice about this you're going to see online is, and why it's absolutely rubbish, what the actual solution to it is, and what you can actually do about it. So Tom, why is it that developers don't like doing marketing?
Other than just being developers?
That's part of it, but yes, go ahead.
I think the first one is fear.
Okay, tell me more about this.
There's different types of fear.
Yep.
So the first one is not being able to talk to people or not wanting to. And that's just something I see all the time. Like I was in a room with 100-something developers in an AI meetup, right? And the number one question, how do I talk to people? Which is what we do all day. And I'm like,
Okay, but when they say talk to people, what they really mean is talking to prospective customers, right?
Sort of, right? Just it seems like there's like a block, right? Because they don't even like talking to other developers much, I see.
Okay. Okay. And I always thought it was just like, customers and marketing people.
No. And I've tried to unpack this, right? And I've spoken to a couple of them. It takes a while to get them to actually open up a bit. Because at first they're just, But a few of them told me, like, I just want to sit and code all day, And the first question, which I always have to say no to, is, can I make a SaaS and sell it without speaking to anyone? I'm like, well, not really. Not if you're the only person.
Not on your own.
Not
the only person in the company. Yeah.
But I think it comes down to a couple of different things. A lot of developers, and this is the fear part, they've been used to working on projects that someone else launched, started, and can market it. And it's very different from going off on your own.
Yes.
Right. There's a lot more uncertainty in that beginning, that initial push. You just got to start, kicking against the wall and see what happens.
I mean,
they don't like doing that.
It's probably not just true for developers. It's probably true for anyone who's in any kind of technical kind of space, right?
It's really for any business person. But with developers,
it's worse.
Hurts more because you are in the best business model possible, which most business people are not. You have the best business model that exists. And the only thing you're missing
is the marketing.
Is the marketing piece, which is the opposite of almost everyone else. They have the marketing down. They're able to scream about things, but they have horrible business models. So it just sucks for developers even more. There's a concept I've also seen, and I explained it to a couple of people and it helped, is the gap and the gain. You ever heard of this?
No, I haven't.
No? Okay.
All right.
So every time you've accomplished anything in your life, there's been two things that happened. One, you learned and figured something out, and then you got an outcome. Always, right?
Okay.
There's the gap, the part that you don't know what you're doing, you got to figure it out, and then you gain things. And to get your SaaS going, there's a gap. That's the marketing piece, but the gain comes after. And if you're able to write out all the gaps and gains in your life that you've done so far, and you realize you've done this before in different ways. You didn't know how to code, you learned how to code, and then you built something, or whatever happened, right?
Deployment.
And then you just, you didn't know how to deploy, and you still don't really know how to deploy, but when you do, it's up in life. So marketing, and you can break it down into small gaps too. That's all it is. Like I haven't done any outreach, now I've done it, and I figured something out. Like I haven't spoke to pretty influencers, but now I did. And one's promoting my app, and I'm getting rich. The gap and the gain helps a lot. But I think fear and mindset is a big part of it. That just kind of blocks people in the beginning.
Do you think there's an element of ego there as well?
With developers? No, of course not.
Wrong category.
Wrong category, of course not. No, developers are just the most like egoless people I've ever met.
No, so like Tom said, apps and software is like literally the best business model in the world, right? You think about it, you build a technically perfect system, and as long as people use it, they get what they want, and they pay you, and the cost of replication is basically free. Cost of every additional unit you sell is essentially free, right? And, if you're a developer watching this, you might be thinking, oh, that's just how it is. Well, no, that's not just how it is. Imagine in the service world, if you will, every single client or customer that you acquire, you now have to spend hours fulfilling for that client. On top of all the other stuff you have to do, like the marketing, on top of the admin, and the communications.
On top of that, Aaron, while you're fulfilling, the client's like, hey, can we jump on quick calls and talk about the updates?
Oh, yeah. 20-minute calls, 1-hour calls, every couple of days.
So can you imagine this, developer, if you had to fulfill for every single person you sell to, and they wanted to jump on quick calls with you?
Actually, there is a term in B2B SaaS. It's called enablement. It's where you have a you have relatively early product, right? And for your first few customers, you do enablement. You basically walk them through the onboarding so that they absolutely get into the product and use it. Now, just imagine that you have to do enablement 3 days a week for every single one of your customers forever.
Okay.
That's kind of what services looks like.
Okay. And then you have to keep doing re-enablement.
Exactly. 3 days a week, every single customer until they stop paying. Which is why developers, you guys are already in the best business model in the world. It's just that one gap, the marketing gap, right?
That's all it is.
Yeah. Now, Tom, is there any other elements to this? Like, is there a technical aspect where they need to work on their offer or their marketing skills or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, bad positioning comes from laziness, and bad positioning kills products, kills offers, every single time.
And when you say laziness, you just mean unwilling to sit down and work it out?
Well, it's because that small piece of marketing, right? So like almost every developer I talk to is like, I hate marketing, I want to code, right? And then, therefore, they put in like the worst possible. So the way I always see it, you're a developer, right? You look at other people's offers in your niche, and you can quickly say, this is bad. This is not good. I would do this better. The second you do your own, your IQ goes down like 50 points for some reason. And now you're like, I'm an AI-driven a software for everybody, and no one buys. You know what I mean? Like positioning is a huge difference, but I think it also comes down to like not wanting to market, because you got to do the market research. You got to really figure it out. You got to pinpoint who you're selling to. There's no such thing as everybody, and I hear this a lot. Anyone that whatever could use this. No, there's no such thing. There's no everybody with anything and anything. There's behaviors. Anyone with this problem behavior might be able to use it. Other than that, no. So, yeah, positioning is something that can take a good offer that's not selling from nothing to scaling very, very quickly.
And it's just a gap that you have to fill by actually doing the work.
It's just a gap, yeah. I mean, you do need a couple things. Like you do need to know what behavior or problem you're solving and kind of for who. In the beginning,
but that's also a gap, right?
Yeah, but it's a market research gap. Again, the marketing part, right? It's just developers unwilling to do any of the marketing, even not speaking to people. You don't need to speak to anyone really to do market research initially. Online, I mean, kind of GPT can do a lot for you if you know what to ask.
I was going to say, a lot of it is AI driven nowadays anyway.
Yeah. If you just know what to ask, it will find out. And then you got to think, you still got to do it. Yeah. And the positioning too, you have to think like, okay, these are the 4 or 5 strategies which I got out of GPT. Now I need to figure out the upsides, downsides of each one. I actually have to pick one and I have to write it out. Like it's not super complicated, but there's some thinking and marketing involved in that too.
Okay. So what's the right way to go about this? And what's the wrong way to go about this? What do you see?
Well, sometimes you have to follow better role models.
Elaborate, please.
Well, even if you go on X, and most developers listening to this will probably be on X. That's like the indie hacker world. You'll see a few people who you think code way worse than you do, but are much more successful. And the only thing you'll see is how they approach marketing, selling, showing the product, talking to people, telling stories about it. I'm not really saying just build in public, because that movement sort of got weird now.
I've always thought it's a little strange. I think we've talked about this before. Build in public is great if you're building for other indie hackers. Yeah. But if you're building for, let's say enterprise, or not even enterprise, you're building for SMEs, right? Where there's some compliance layer required and they don't want their competition to know their secret sauce, you're not going to really be building in public.
I also think of it as the B2C, right? Like if you don't have a big audience and you're not one of these marketing kind of developers and you're building a smart idea, B2C, that
someone's just going to rip it off.
They just rip it off
very
and
quickly.
Yeah. There's no upside.
And as developers, your main skill is coding and technical, and you know how easy it is to duplicate somebody else's app.
Yeah, and this is even interesting when like people do follow the right role models, but they do the wrong things. Someone like Peter Levels will come out and be like, I'm building this thing. So you're like, okay, I got to talk about what I'm building, except he has the audience. The second he mentions it, he's going to sell it.
It's a marketing tool.
It's a marketing tool. So you need to replicate the parts that make sense, but not the ones you can't replicate, right? Like I can't get into the ring with Jeff Bezos and be like, hey, this is what I'm going to do. Like we're not in the same field. Like I'm not even watching the game.
So let's talk more about that, because a lot of marketing advice is actually written for VC-backed companies, right? Companies that have made it into
especially
YC
for startups.
or whatever.
Yeah. I think you'd have more to say on that.
I mean, what I'll say about it is, anyone who's been in business for a while, you go to the bookstore or Amazon nowadays and you look for marketing books, and I'd say about 75-80% of them are written for companies, right? And in the startup space, most of them are probably written for VC-backed companies, which means that your intention is to acquire a lot of users, even at a loss, and then eventually take the company public or sell it off to private equity or someone else, or get acquired by a bigger company. Your intent is not to actually make money. Your intent is growth, which is a very different marketing objective from having a profitable business that you can live off, right? So if you're in, San Francisco, you have $1 to $3 million in VC funding. Hell, even if you have $300,000 in VC funding, go for it. Read these startup marketing books, focus on user acquisition, and do all that good stuff. But you are going to be living on cup ramen and sharing a house with your 4 other co-founder developers during the whole time. It's not a glamorous lifestyle, and it's not the payoff will come years down the line, and you need to have the VC funding to begin with, right? But if you're a indie hacker living in, Bali or Bangkok or Chiang Mai or any of these places, and you need to pay for your day-to-day, and you actually want to make a cash flow positive business and some exit money, this is not the way to go about it. Having 10,000 free users, 100,000 free users isn't going to do anything for your business.
Agreed. And then there's the other 30% of books written by people who are SaaS influencers, but never built or sold anything.
Tell me more about this.
I don't want to name names because I know a couple of them.
No, don't name the names. Just tell me the ideas. What do they say?
So it's typically a lot of this like rah-rah, like motivational stuff. Like you can do anything, and then you just hire, you just hire everyone else to do the things you can't. Which like for them, sort of maybe because
But I mean, developers, I don't know, man. I feel like developers don't really go for that anyway, because they're like,
they do. You
think so?
Yeah, like I mentioned a few names to developers, like, yeah, that guy's great. I'm like,
man, I thought developers would be like, oh yeah, that guy can't code. I can't take him seriously.
Oh, like they're able to hype them up enough and feel them so good about themselves that they like them. Because that's a big part
terrible.
of it. I know.
Don't read those books and don't listen to that advice.
And a lot of them, like they make most of their money just going to startups and speaking to the teams.
Yeah. It's like a coaching business model, essentially.
It is. But then when they turn around and give advice, they're talking like they're the ones building these startups. And they're giving advice, I mean, it's like, it's one of those.
Yeah.
I mean, they're fun books. I read a couple of them. They're fun, but then like when you really think of it, it's like, show me what you built. And a few of them, and I think some developers will get the names in their head a little quicker, they were able to acquire some of these businesses. So they're showing things that have been built and they bought and now are making money. But they've never actually built it.
Which is a legitimate business model, is probably just not the advice you want to follow.
That's what I mean, right? Maybe if you role models.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to mention is there's a parallel here. And Tom, I'm sure you remember this as well. Say you're not VC backed, you didn't grow up in San Francisco or a startup hub, and you want to get into business and be an entrepreneur for the first time. And you start reading those marketing books and you quickly realize that there are really two categories. There are, at least, back 20 years when you and I started, Tom, there's a category for people who ran traditional brick and mortar businesses, how to do branding, how to buy newspaper ads and stuff like that. And then there was the direct marketing, we focus on cash flow and making sales kind of advice. Guys like Dan Kennedy, like Jay Abraham and stuff like that. And strangely enough, over the last 20 years, that hasn't really changed that much. Most marketing books are still written for the mainstream, and relatively few are written for businesses that need to be cash flow positive very quickly and that actually lead to exit money.
It's funny when you say that, because it's not just in marketing. I was just speaking with a bunch of writers. Writing is a huge thing in anything if you want to sell anything, right? And all of them said the worst book that you can buy on writing is also the most best-selling book. It's called Elements of Style. They said if you want to be a horrible writer, that's what you want to get. But that's what everybody gets.
Interesting.
And when I think of marketing, there's a lot of books like that. If you want to be a horrible marketer, you need to buy this book, which is the most recommended book on the market. You know what I mean? Like it's very similar to that. I would imagine this happens in a lot of industries.
Probably happens not even as industries, across different product categories too. People buy based on popularity, not based on what's actually good.
Like one book you will continue hearing about all the time as if it's some magical thing, like breakthrough advertising.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, but people still talk about this. They probably never read it, how breakthrough it is. And all it is just telling people about awareness levels.
Back in the day, it probably was.
Yeah, but when did it come out? Like 50, 60 years ago?
Probably 70, 80 now, man.
See, that's what I mean.
We're in 2025 already.
But if you look on people's lists from this and last year, they'll still put that book in. Yeah. And it's like, well, all you need to know that some people don't know about your product yet and don't know what it solves. Like it's like the most, like it could be told in a paragraph. Things like that. All right, let's talk about some more solutions then.
Yeah, let's talk about solutions. Tom and I are not developers by training, but over time we have learned to code in bits and pieces ourselves, and we'll talk more about that in a future episode. But it's useful to think of marketing as a programming problem, right? Apply your logical thinking and faculty skills to it and figure out that, hey, there are probably multiple ways to bridge that gap and solve this problem. So let's talk about the first one. And people talk about this all the time, which is get a marketing co-founder. What do you think about that, Tom? You're a marketer. I'm sure you've been approached a number of times to be the marketing co-founder. What are your thoughts?
This is so similar to when people say, because they think marketer, like the first hire I want to do is a salesperson because I can't sell as when you're running a business. And what that typically means, someone owns you, right? Because if that person is the only one that sells and talks to clients, they leave, you're done, right? Now with marketers, it's a little different because many marketers themselves, they can't sell. There's a difference, sales marketing, right?
Yes.
Like
you may need to elaborate on that because I think a lot of people don't know the difference.
Yeah. So a marketer is the one who gets people interested in the product so that they want to buy it. And the salesperson is the one that closes them, right? With apps, usually you don't need a closer unless you're doing something that's like B2B or something more complicated. But B2C, you don't need a closer.
No.
You don't need a closer.
You shouldn't.
Right?
You really shouldn't. Yeah.
You shouldn't, yeah. But if you do want to get in the better niche of SaaS, you probably want to have someone, and this is super hard to get. So unless you can find them, I wouldn't, a marketer that has sales experience and is a bit technical. Because what I've noticed by talking to people who try to get marketing co-founders, if the marketer is completely non-technical, it becomes chaos. They can't really explain the product. They can't help with it. They can't give good advice based on what the client says. They're just marketing. It's just hype. They don't get it. And I think it's very, very difficult. And this is why some people say it's easier for a developer to learn how to market, because you don't need to learn sales. Sales is very hard. Marketing is not that complicated. Then for a marketer with a short attention span to learn development.
Would you say that marketing is actually more about technical, quote unquote book skills rather than interpersonal skills?
No, it's still a lot of psychology behind it, but it's stuff you can figure out like a programmer.
Right. Whereas sales, you have to actually go out and do it.
Sales is about transfer of emotion. That's all it is.
Which is a lot harder to figure out than psychology.
Which for a developer is usually not the way to go. Right? So marketing, you can figure out based on frameworks and tests. More tests than frameworks will start you off, but tests can show you the way. Sales, you could do via a lot of tests, but they're going to be super uncomfortable for you because you need to keep selling people. And you will get rejected over and over again. I think in my first sales job, I've counted it out. I had like 1,000-something rejections before I became so numb to it that you just couldn't tell me anything. And that's just something you just got to get through. And I don't think that's, like a regular person, even not a developer, will just have a mental breakdown.
This reminds me of I know in the sales world, probably the two highest paid sales subcategories are going to be technical sales and financial sales.
Yes.
Because both require technical product knowledge to pull off.
And that's why it's really hard. That's why it's really hard. But at the least, if you can find someone that's good at marketing, has at least like a year in sales, like it doesn't have to be much. They didn't have to be successful. Just kind of understand that part because it can really help with making the marketing go faster because they understand the transfer of emotion part and they can put it in the marketing, but they need some technical awareness, like something. They should at least know how to put up your code in some kind of a frame. Like they should know something. Like it doesn't have to be a lot, just like the foundations of it. Like what is happening with this program, why it's happening. And then when the client says something, it's like, well, okay, based on what I know, this can be fixed or it cannot. And we need to do something else.
Okay. So, to sum it up, with the marketing co-founder, yes or no? What's the recommendation there?
I'd say no.
Lean more heavily towards no.
I would lean, more heavily towards no. I would lean to stop being so scared and do some marketing.
Learn yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going to do that, let's talk about channels. What is working and what isn't working? What are the traditional SaaS or B2C app marketing channels?
I'll let you handle this one.
Yeah, I can kick it off. So you're going to have basically chunk it into paid and not paid, right? Is probably a good start. And paid is your typical Facebook ads, Google ads, App Store ads. I'm sure there's a bunch of other ones I'm missing out. Media buys, things like that, right? That's in my mind, that's very technical marketing. It's all about split tests and positioning and offers and stuff. And that's something that as a developer, you absolutely 100% can learn. And you're probably very good at it too, because it's very numbers based, right? Let's talk about not paid. So what are your traditional not paid channels? So in the SaaS world, they talked, I should say past tense, a lot about SEO.
Yeah.
Which I know Tom has some words about. And then the only real other not paid channel are going to be referrals and social channels. Outreach is in like B2B outreach, I would classify as a paid channel because you will pay for something along the lines to cold email people.
Yeah, it's true. Most have always been found via Google. You will hear a lot of success still. With now it's not as much Google as like GPT recommending things, but similar. That's what they're getting their info from.
Yeah.
A lot of it is things like Quora, Reddit. People just leaving comments and things.
Social or semi-social channels.
It's a semi-social.
Yeah.
Reddit is too argumentative to be social.
Well, partially search-driven, also partially user behavior-driven. So,
what I'm seeing a bit now too. This really depends on the app. But I've been seeing, and it's kind of interesting, apps being able to elbow out courses in the AdWords space.
I mean, to me, that makes sense because Google has always loved actual products more than information.
But it used to not be the case. It used to be that a course would sell much better than an app via paid keywords, where I'm seeing it's kind of churning now, which is interesting, right? That's an interesting part. You can pay for installs, through some paid channels. That's going to really depend on your business model. If that's going to, if you have like the freemium model, you're going to go broke very quickly. But if you have a paid wall very quick, up in front, some of them I can see making it happen. Facebook, I've never seen apps do well. And then the new model that we've been kind of talking about, right? It's this like non-co-founder equity leverage play with influencers.
So influencers is pretty much a social channel, but the traditional advice, and hell, I say traditional advice, but you just sent me an article the other day about people talking about this. Look, for whatever reason, businesses are like, oh, okay, we're going to do social. We must build our own social channel. I got news for you guys. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. If you have a business product page, they don't want you to rank well. They're not going to give you views and following because they want you to pay using ads instead, right? So if you think that you have an app and you're going to build a multi-million person following for your specific, very niche app, it's just not going to happen. Yeah, there will occasionally be exceptions. And those exceptions usually fall into where the content is totally not about the app at all, and the app is just like ancillary. It was like an afterthought to the actual content. But the majority of the time, if you think that you're going to take your, I don't know, what's a good example of this, Tom? What's a B2C app we've seen recently? AI baby photo generator. You take two people, you put them side by side, and then the AI produces what their baby would look like, right? Now, that's actually a better social app a better app for putting on social than most apps. But even that, if you made a channel just for that, do you really think you can hit 1 million followers? Probably not, right? TikTok has no incentive to let you hit 1 million followers because they know you're a business you can afford to pay for advertising. Their algorithm will actually punish you for being a business.
It's true. But on the other hand, if there is a lady influencer out there with a market of only women who are about to give birth, that's a goldmine.
Yes, because her channel will be pushed up in the algorithm because what is she making? She's essentially making entertainment / a little bit of advice content, right? Which is what keeps people on channels like TikTok, like Instagram, which what makes people engage and keep going back for more. So therefore, instead of trying to build your own channel, you're much better off leveraging other people's channels and followings. And I don't think most people in the B2B or B2C world for development have really caught on to this yet, because just like the article you sent me the other day, Tom, they're still like, your CEO had better be an influencer.
That's not going to happen.
Bro, your CEO is, if you're lucky, some sales dude. If you're like everyone else, probably another technical guy who gives talks at development conferences or industry conferences, right?
Really dry talks.
He's not going to become a mainstream influencer. It's just, or even a niche influencer in your space. It's just not going to.
Yeah. And then there's this other path now. I heard a couple companies talk about this. Everyone on your team should be an influencer. And then you think about that. So the influencer play is huge at this moment, we think.
And largely untapped too.
And what's the thing you said? It's mostly because developers don't want to talk to pretty girls? That's the only barrier?
I believe you said to me, Tom, developers just don't want to talk to people, period.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It is. But, most of the influencers that we see selling SaaS without making it feel like they're selling anything are pretty girls.
Yes, because that is what people like to watch on social media.
What's that one we've seen recently? Was that the Excel lady? We talked about that before.
Right? But she's kind of no, it's true. But she doesn't really sell Excel, right? She does corporate training and stuff. But,
again.
Yeah, Miss Excel, I think her name is, yeah.
We have hundreds of educational Excel products. Hundreds, if not more, thousands.
This is true.
And is this one the best? I would doubt so. But is it making 7+ figures? It is. And it happens all the time. And with influencers, I don't know, maybe we should talk about this later, but, it's there's an equity leverage there, but it's not a co-founder. And there's like a lot of reasons to this.
There's different ways to structure the deal, and we think that equity with an exit in mind is the best way to do it. But that's for a later episode. All right. Any parting words, Tom?
So, there's this saying that you should do 4 hours of marketing for every 4 hours of building as a developer. Like there's this saying by the people who you should be following, the top role models, right? The ones that have done it before. And the first thing you got to just figure out in a day is like, what am I doing now? Am I doing building or marketing? Because most of us just do whatever, that we like. Like I would do marketing all day unless I put some time in for other things. And now if you say, I don't want to do 4 hours, don't. Do 5 minutes. Nobody cares what you do, really, in this world. It's your results, right? But you got to start. You can start with a minute. Like you can just go on IG, see if you can find 4 people in your space that can reach your market and reach out. If you can't reach out yet, just put them in a spreadsheet. Just do something. You can start slow, but like there's got to be marketing in your day.
And speaking of which, in the description box below this video, you are going to find our version of that. So check out the link because you guys are in our space and we would like to reach out to you.
Until next time.
Until next time.